I'm a bad motherfucker.
Okay, so this is one that was broken by Matt Walsh. Now, I have followed his reporting on gender theory for quite a while, and I have always found his reporting to be reliable.
And for a trans man to come out that brave and talk about it, I really respect him.
He is the literal beard.
He does look like a lesbian.
Matt Walsh
Got hormones and grew a beard, or is wearing a
he
fake
is
beard.
a literal beard. So breaking, I've obtained internal footage of senior officials at the FAA's Flight Program Operations Division, which is responsible for all aspects of aircraft operations, workshopping a plan to reduce the number of white males in aviation.
Is it by crashing the planes?
Well, that's what's next. So the footage begins with FAA Acting Deputy Chief Operating Officer Angela McCullough saying more workers need to go from ramp to cockpit.
Is that like ass to mouth?
Meaning she wants to see more baggage handlers become airline pilots.
Me too.
Yeah, no, I mean, because the way they handle the baggage is so delicate.
Wait, why can't Joe Rogan talk about ivermectin if you can do that?
All right, so let's see them discussing how they're going to diversify the pilots by promoting people up from baggage handler.
And we're looking at that, but we're also looking at really a need across the agency to recruit and retain a diverse population of folks. And as you mentioned earlier, how much that adds to the process. What do you think are some of the key points that we need to remember as we embark on this challenge going forward?
That's a pretty good question. I think one of the things we need to now is that everyone else is embarking on the same thing, right? Just across the system. So competition is going to be it's just going to be really heavy, right? So I think we need to know that. I think it's going to take some creativity. You heard Tim saying he and I had talked about, and we're going to you all is, are there opportunities for any partnerships with universities or trade schools that specialize? We kind of talked about from, ramp to cockpit. Is there some things that we would want to look at there?
All right, so that's what that means. When you're talking about ramp, that's their internal lingo for baggage handlers.
#1 porn search in certain parts of Pornhub, if you check their ramp to cockpit.
Yes, so as the meeting goes on, McCullough declares that it's important to get a little uncomfortable. She complains that flight operations is white male dominated and tells the managers they need to talk about what the future could look like.
But we need to be willing to have a conversation about kind of what's standing in our way from approaching some of these things differently than we have historically approached them. And just even the internal bias, I mean, particularly in flight ops, your whole program is very heavily male dominated. It just is. And really, it is white male dominated. Let's just say what it is. And so let's be willing, that is today what it is. And then let's talk about what could the future look like if we really had this program that was representative of the whole country, right, of the whole world. And sometimes those are challenging or, difficult, or I would say people get a little bit uncomfortable talking about that, and like, hey, we're not going to make change unless we get a little bit uncomfortable, and let's be uncomfortable together, and let's do the right things and support each other moving forward.
Unless our passengers,
let's be uncomfortable together.
Let's be uncomfortable as your plane plunges 3,000 feet
also,
without warning.
By the way, no one's uncomfortable to talk about this. In fact, people had no problem talking about this until it turned out they could have their lives ruined for not saying the thing this bitch wants them to say. And by the way, these white guys here are the biggest losers. You're sitting there. Is your job on the line, you white dipshit?
Well, that's it. They know if they say boo in a meeting like this, they're gone. They're fired the next day.
They should be.
And you have one in the next clip who kisses up to this.
I hope every one of them dudes gets replaced.
This is the difference between equality and equity.
Yeah.
Equality, which I think we were working towards, would ask, why aren't there more pilots from diverse backgrounds? How do we find the best talent,
math
but
is
of
hard.
more diverse backgrounds? Well, I mean, if you really diversified to say black pilots, it wouldn't be 50%, it would be 14%.
Right.
When you start imposing equity, it starts to become a question of, well, even if you don't have enough people who are talented in this area, you're trying to meet a quota. And we see what that's done to Hollywood on a much more trivial level, where they've just promoted up the chain people who are completely unqualified
They're
in order
crashing
to
like a
meet a
Boeing?
quota, and they're crashing. All these companies are losing billions of dollars. Disney most visibly, but they're all tanking that have gone in that direction.
Shout out to the Clinton Foundation for helping with that, by the way.
And then, you start applying this to medical schools. You start applying this to airlines.
I thought it was made up.
Lives are literally on the line.
Russ, my mother said this to me a year ago. I'm like, that can't be a thing.
But wait, it gets better.
It's sir.
All right. So, in keeping with what you were just saying, in response, David Will Riggins, the FAA's Vice President of Flight Program Operations, says, "That's great, honestly. Those are some words that we really need to spend some time digging through and thinking about."
What
Now
words?
that's a
Uncomfortable?
guy who doesn't want the mob coming for him. Watch.
No, Angela, that's great. Honestly, those are some words that we really need to spend some time, I think, kind of digging through and thinking about.
You bitch.
All right. It doesn't end there, and honestly, this makes me nervous because I already bought the tickets, because Delta comes up a lot in this. And I'm already avoiding United.
Is American flyable? That's why I've been taking.
Because you've got these initiatives at United, and also they have the most Boeing planes of any airline, but it's Delta too. So this footage, which is from April of 2022, is a sign of a much larger problem. Over the past few weeks, I've heard from several members of the aviation industry who tell me that DEI is endangering the public and distracting them from their work.
Maybe bring it up at work too, dude.
Yeah, well, they get fired.
The boss?
A second source, a pilot I've confirmed works at Delta, tells me that Delta has recently promoted a trans-identifying pilot who repeatedly received bad reviews from captains. According to the source, this pilot would likely not have survived probation if he weren't trans. So this is what the person told Walsh. We recently had a transgender pilot repeatedly receive negative reviews during his first-year probationary period from captains he flew with regarding attitude, CRM. I'm not sure. Does anyone know what CRM is?
I don't know. Can he
All
still
right,
read to my child
Try
in
to
the
Google
cockpit?
that. Let's see what that is. CRM and judgment, yet the chief pilot's office was unwilling to address the issue. Had this not been a transgender pilot, the individual would likely not have successfully completed their probationary period. Coincidentally, that CPO has a management pilot on staff who recently transitioned, who is able to weigh in on these matters.
Oh my God.
Okay, so here's a little internal thing from Delta. The source also notes that Delta routinely makes exceptions for trans-identifying pilots concerning grooming and behavioral standards. Internally, Delta has even published a lengthy guide for pilots who believe they were born in the wrong body. And here you can see the graphic, presumably for that guide, helpful steps for transitioning at Delta.
I mean, could you be more on the nose about wrapping yourself in the flag of trans?
Literally
doing that in the picture?
Literally. This is another one he has from somebody who works on military systems, talking about how this works internally. We hire college graduates with zero experience who get assigned a project and immediately start pushing this nonsense. For context, I work in a field where my job is to design military systems for the warfighter, and I have to deal with new hires pitching me ideas about gender-inclusive seatbelts.
Wait, is fat a gender now?
I don't see how else seatbelts would come up.
Oh,
companies are made up of two types of individuals: those who eat, sleep, and breathe DEI, ESG, the pronoun in their email signature people. I gotta say, man, I have never known anyone who put their pronoun in their signature who wasn't forced to do it to keep their job, who thought it was a good idea, who was not a fucking idiot.
I know.
Never.
It's
never.
funny you say that
They
because
are always fucking, anyone you know who does that willingly, like they want to do it.
I wouldn't have them anywhere
morons,
near me.
always.
I wouldn't have, if I had employment for someone and I saw that, I would immediately
Absolutely.
disqualify.
Absolutely. Kurt, there's a big part of why I haven't gone ahead to do any theater anymore, man,
Oh, I
because
bet.
you can't find anyone who's not these
Oh, my
fucking people
God. I
who are
know.
not these idiots.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fighting with anyone I try to work with within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The pronoun in their email signature, people.
I'm not
and
saying
those,
trans. I'm saying if you use, if you put
yeah,
it in your email,
no. The people who
you
put
should be
that in their
fucking out of everything.
it definitely says something about the person, and it's never been good in my experience.
Or if you say Latinx,
yes, that too, but they don't sign like that. They don't sign.
sounds like a chemical.
They don't sign Latinx.
Sounds like a chemical. deployed at the border.
Which, by the way, if the Latin community wanted to be called that, I wouldn't make fun of it, but they don't.
Yeah.
They don't. That's the crazy part of it. When you poll them, they don't like it.
I mean, I would make fun
you
of
want
them,
to
but
talk
they're not
all these people who will talk about the white savior trope
I know.
are gonna tell Latin people what they want to be called.
Good news, guys. I cleared up that problem with your people's entire language, that it's offensive to some crap we came up with.
Exactly. You know how Romance languages are gendered? Yeah, we're not okay with that.
You know how the conquistadors
you need to change your entire language.
We're colonizing it.
And by the way, I spent my pandemic vacation studying Spanish. And what's really crazy about that is, yes, the language might be gendered, but it's not connected to gendered descriptions.
Oh, I know.
So like vestido is a dress. It's a masculine term. So it has absolutely nothing to do with it.
I know, but kind of like how movies have nothing to do with any of this shit, and they feel that that's the most important.
Right. And those who keep their mouths shut and do the work. We have affirmation groups, protections, and heritage months for every single type of person except white men. If I don't have at least 2 DEI ESG meetings or trainings per week on my calendar, then the all-hands town hall meetings have some sort of DEI baked into the agenda. We constantly have lunches, dinners, happy hours, movie nights, holiday celebrations, all in the name of DEI led by ESG champions, while the rest of us try to get our work done.
Thank capitalism and Wall Street,
Listen,
because that's
man.
who let that in.
Listen. In China right now, in Russia right now, in India right now, in the global south right now, they're laughing their fucking asses
Communist
off.
China would never in a million years have something. They don't believe in any of that stupid shit. Communist China. That should be your clue. It's not the left. The wingnuts that think they're in the left, I understand they exist. They would never have this power unless the fucks at the top of capitalism wanted them there, ruining shit for you.
One other major reason why this wouldn't come up in India or China is because they actually make things there. They actually do real work there. This is a problem of capitalism post-production, right? Post-industry. No, it's true. We don't do anything anymore here.
Well,
and so
make up
people
great
got to
words.
eat, right? All these PMCs with their college degrees, they have to do something for their money. They can't just do nothing. And so everybody on that Zoom call was getting paid to be there. They're all winners. That's what they do for a living. These people, they talk about gender and identity and equity and equality. And, we're going to have a conversation with the university leaders. That'll be another 3.5 weeks. I could bill for $2,000 a week. It's just make work for PMCs. That's all this stuff is. And a big reason why it's caught on is because we don't do real work anymore here. We don't make anything.
We make guns.
Well, this is part of the problem. And this is what I think is happening. People who get hired for these jobs at the executive level at an airline, they're coming out of these universities whose academic departments have long since been overrun by this ideology. And then they're coming out of school and they're getting jobs now. At first, it was just in the humanities. It was just in journalism. It was just in areas that were not mathematical, that were not scientific,
comic books and video
that were
games?
not very
Yeah.
practical, right? And it destroyed those.
Yeah.
But that's just a destruction of culture.
The part on the wall
Now,
no one watched.
now
Yup.
it's getting into medicine. Now it's getting into airlines where people's lives are at stake.
Yeah.
And you got people running around talking about how they hire the most diverse pilots instead of hiring the best pilots. Now,
Illegal. It's illegal,
and
by the
again,
way.
and equality of opportunity is something I think all reasonable, decent people agree on. And if you want to say, hey, people from this community are underrepresented, how can we create programs in schools and universities for them to come up? But frankly, I mean, don't a lot of these pilots, whatever their background, come out of the military, which is one of the places where you're really going to practically
Correct.
get that training?
Correct.
And as far as I know, the military does not really have a problem, given that it goes after people who are lacking in other opportunities, recruiting people of color.
Yeah.
So don't you have enough people of color coming up through the pipeline in the military
Russ,
to recruit pilots
hold
from?
on.
Like maybe, listen, I don't know. Maybe
I'll tell you.
within the military, they do show a preference towards white people for the pilot training programs so that the people coming out of the training are not reflective of the Air Forces as a
It's
whole.
not that. It's
but
not
I
that.
don't know. I don't know.
I do know because my
Okay,
girlfriend's
all right.
dad is a pilot, and he warned her a while before this story came out not to fly United because they were doing this DI training. And here's the issue. Number one.
So you heard this even before we covered this.
Yes,
about
her
United.
dad's a pilot who was in the military. But the thing with being a pilot is those airplanes, there's a lot of math involved. You got to
Right.
be real good
Right.
at it.
Right.
So they don't give a shit about your color. You got to pass a goddamn test.
Right.
If you can't pass the test, you're not qualified. So their bright idea is to lower the standards
Right.
of the math. Because as you know, math is racist. That was one of the things we established a couple years ago.
Right. Right.
I love this.
Well.
Did Russia
and
do this to us?
Well, and this is where you look at how decadent a society has to be, how privileged, how fat a society has to be able to indulge in ideas that are so disconnected from observable reality. That is a society who's at the very least, its ruling class, its elites, have gone so long without facing meaningful challenges to their authority and to their power that they can afford to just go off in what is clearly a completely insane approach to life, much less to running an airline.
Do you want to be in the golden billion or not?
Walsh says in one of his tweets, this is inevitably going to wind up killing people.
It already has.
And
it already has. It already has.
Well, I've covered a lot of the Boeing thing, and that has more to do with the financialization of Boeing as an organization.
Right, but then when they would, besides the surfers they had, I guess, screw the doors on. They also have the videos of the
that's also
team.
because they're lowballing.
Right.
They're trying to get the cheapest.
That's why they like diversity. You don't got to train the pilot, cheaper training on these planes that now don't work right because what they did with the. Then you got you don't have to pay them that much. That's why Hollywood loves the diversity.
Actually, yeah. The anonymous writer who wrote that article said that was part of what it was because they prefer to hire these young people that they don't have to pay as much, and they've all been trained to think like this.
You get paid an identity.
So Misha looked it up. Crew resource management or cockpit resource management is a set of training procedures for use in environments where human error can have devastating effects. CRM is primarily used for improving aviation safety and focuses on interpersonal communication, leadership, and decision-making in aircraft cockpits. Well, you could see how all that would be important when you're responsible for hundreds of lives. So basically, these insiders are saying they are not holding transgender people particularly to those standards when they promote them up the chain.
Oh, my God.
You got anything, Keaton?
No, I've said about what I have. I mean, this is a low stakes issue for me. I don't fly very often. All
right, Keaton, we're exactly the opposite. I'm all over the place. Keaton goes to Connecticut. He comes back with his face like a fucking grapefruit because
he got attacked by a murderer horsefly.
Yeah, he gets bit by a horsefly. So he came back when that happened. I said, well, now you're definitely not going to travel. You go out of state. You go to the next state over.
Oh my God. I got to fly a lot in the next month, so I can only fly
me
what,
too,
American?
dude. I'm flying tomorrow.
You know, it's your axe to grind.
Oh, now when I hear the pilot's voice, I'm
and that,
be like,
no,
well,
I have a Delta ticket pre-bought, not for tomorrow, but for later in the season. And I'm going to London. Yeah, man. I mean, we got to stop doing these stories.
Well, just keep a lookout, Kurt. If the pilot can't decide which bathroom to use before they take off, then, you know, maybe rebook.
Then I demand
another
flight. Yeah. All right, Misha, to you.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy and the rest of MSNBC. And click on any of the videos right here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. And you can get more videos from MSNBC for free every day with our newsletter. Just visit